Hold on, let me put on a backwards hat.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. This is dumb, huh?
Yeah, man, fix it. It doesn't have to look dumb. Just like tuck that piece of hair in your head, man.
I've really made an ass of myself this time,
Don't
haven't I?
overthink it. Nobody
No,
has to
no.
see this other than us. You could feel self-conscious about your hair. That's fine. That's normal. That's human. And you could put a hat on your hair to cover it because you feel self-conscious. That's
I
fine.
can't
That's
believe
normal.
this
That's
is my
human.
life.
You
I
don't.
can't believe this is me.
You're spiraling.
1, 2, 3, 4. These boys only want the best of. They want the cream of the crop. They don't want none of that Michael Bay shit. They want the shit that pops. Oscar bait, black and white. Maybe something French. If it's got more than one explosion, honey, put that shit on the bench. Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners. These boys are the Oscar Wieners.
Yum, yum.
Oscar Wieners.
Christ.
I'm keeping the hat.
Fine. Committing to the bit is honestly admirable.
It's not a bit. This is who I am.
Well, committing to who you are is admirable. Welcome to Oscar Wieners.
Hey.
The only show on the internet where Hollywood's biggest night is forever
What?
24/7 wise.
Wow.
I wrote that down because I was like, I have to use this wise business.
I'm crying.
Yeah.
fucking
I think there's
beautiful.
just a gas leak in your room. You need
That
to
is
get out.
true, but
Uh,
you're a wordsmith. What's
I'm
the show about?
I'm CC Sabathia.
You're CC Sabathia today
Yeah,
for the
ever
evening?
heard of him?
We're doing a night show. It's been
Night
such a long
shift.
time.
On the night shift.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
I've got a little whiskey.
Yeah, I've got a little sour.
Ooh.
We're getting sexy. We're getting hot. My shirt's coming off at the 22-minute mark, so just keep
Don't
an eye
make
out for that.
promises. Don't make promises you can't keep.
This is a show. What's your fucking name? Are you like Brett?
Don't
what's
you
that?
fucking dare
Are
put words in
you
my
Mark
mouth.
Teixeira? I don't know.
No, my name
you
is Mr.
Jorge-
$85 a month.
I thought the same thing.
That's how much he pays for his apartment.
Yeah, I was like, God, they had it right.
They
I'm
had
sure
it
if
right.
you did, I'm sure if you did the numbers crunch on the inflation of that, the rent we pay today is like 250% past what it should be.
So I did crunch the numbers on that. And
There
by
we go.
crunch the numbers, I mean I did a very, very brief Google search. The buying power of $85 is allegedly... Oh, well, the buying power of $85 a week, aka $340 a month, is the equivalent of $3,500 a month, which makes sense given he had a pretty expansive one-bedroom apartment at a pretty high-demand location in New York City. Honestly, tracks.
So I'm Michael. What's your name?
I'm Ander. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. This is a podcast where every week we're two wieners, and every week we pick a best picture wiener at random, and try to
Nice.
figure out if it's best picture worthy. And this week we were talking about the 1961 best picture winner, The Apartment, co-written, produced, and directed by Billy Wilder.
Who's in it?
Fucking Jack Lemmon as CC Baxter. A guy who works at an insurance company. What does he do?
He's like an underwriter. Is that his deal? Or maybe a salesman?
On Letterboxd, it says he's a clerk. I don't know. He works at a big New York City insurance company.
Yeah.
He's on the 19th floor. He's trying to work his way up. He has a thing for the elevator operator, played by Shirley MacLaine, whose name is Fran Kubelik. Mrs. Kubelik. Ms. Kubelik. Meanwhile, in order to work his way up to the top fucking executive suites of this company, CC Baxter allows the higher ups at his firm to use his apartment to fuck their mistresses.
This movie's pretty sex positive, actually.
This movie is horny, and I'm happy.
I was surprised that this movie is so, like, they talk about, they don't talk about sex, but like they reference hookups and mistresses and extramarital affairs, and kind of they dwell on the itty bitty details of the whole business of it. I thought that was interesting for 1961 or whatever.
Yeah, this movie feels ahead of its time a little bit. Like, or at least it feels like it is the first movie of the time that would come after this movie, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, now we're gonna have more explicit sort of rom-com kinds of explicit adult movies. Yeah.
What's this movie rated? This is before MPAA?
Yeah, it's probably rated fucking G for go see it. I don't know.
It's rated G for good hats in this movie. Would you, if you were at a, let's say, if you had a nice apartment in New York City overlooking Central Park West, you wouldn't rent it out to executives at your company?
No, because my whole thing is like, in the opening scene, Jack Lemmon, CC Baxter,
cool.
He has to wait outside his apartment for an extra like 20 minutes because the higher ups is taking a little bit extra long with his mistress. And then when CC Baxter gets inside, I'll just call him Baxter. He's a Baxter.
Okay. He's a Baxter.
When Baxter gets inside, I just immediately thought, like, I saw the bed a little bit like near the corner of the frame, and I was like, are they like changing the sheets? Like, what's the sheet situation here? Are they having sex on the floor?
Well, they're not necessarily having sex. I'm sure that happens from time to time, but I think it's more to like have a date. I don't know. Maybe they're having sex. It's not.
I just assume they're all having sex because
I'm not sure. It seems more just like they're having champagne and having a night away from their wives. They're probably having sex because the doctor next door is like, oh, you've been at it every night. Oh, good for you.
Dr. Dreyfus. I love Dr. Dreyfus.
He's a great character. He's awesome.
I love that like the conclusion Baxter reaches by the end is one that Dr. Dreyfus taught him, which is just be a mensch, be a good guy.
Be a mensch, man.
It's so nice. Yeah. So that's like kind of the basic setup of the movie, but then like eventually the highest guy at the company, Mr. Sheldrake, played by Fred McMurray, finds out what's been going on, partly because Baxter is getting all these recommendations from these higher up guys, and he's like, this is the other times this has happened at this company, usually some weird shit's going on. So like, what's the
gambling ring or something?
Yeah.
So what shady shit is going? Like, he's a smart guy. He's like, what shady shit is going on here? Like, you're probably like decent at your job at best, but you got something else in your corner.
Right.
It's so like, I have a sex den that I rent, and I just kind of sublet to these other sex pots.
You know how you just accidentally stumble into running a sex den? Come on, Shelley. That's happened to you.
Life is so kooky and crazy. One minute you're just trying to make your way up in the world as an insurance underwriter, and the next second you're just running a sex den to get ahead in life.
Next second you're cleaning all kinds of fluid off your bedroom floor that doesn't belong to you.
Sperm. Yeah.
Sperm, and
Spome.
All right. Yeah, so Sheldrake is like
he's like, I'm the big boss, and I think you should now give me the key to your apartment, and I'll guarantee you a promotion.
Yeah, he's like, so fuck those other guys. Forget you ever knew them. Give me the key to your apartment. I also have a mistress. And I'm gonna bring her over to your place. So,
which is kind of a sick setup. Like, when he's presented with that opportunity, he's like, oh, okay, guy with more power is going to basically guarantee me a promotion, higher pay, better title. And it's just one guy, whereas I'm struggling with 4 different guys who are trying to book this shit, and I'm like trying to be their secretary and get them all in here.
There's that very, very funny and good scene where he has to like
he's going through his Rolodex of like all these guys. Can you move to Thursday?
Yeah, he has to move people's appointments around for his apartment. It's just such a good. This movie commits so hard to the bit and finds so many funny like little details to like build on, and that are it's just really this.
It is, and you know what? It's genuinely funny. Which I'm not trying to throw shade on 1960 as a whole.
You're always trying to do that, and honestly, it's an issue at this point.
This time I'm not. But people in the 1960s don't necessarily have the same humor as people in the 2010s, 2020s.
No, I think at one point Jack Lemmon says Riz. You didn't hear
that? He's like, I'm trying to put the Riz on her, boss. It's funny. This movie is genuinely funny. Like, I laughed hard.
Hell yeah.
I fucking had a hernia at this shit, dude.
That's not... Okay.
All right, maybe not that severe, but it was funny. It was good. Like when he's going through the Rolodex and doing all this stuff, I'm like, this is silly. Like, I can't believe he's doing this. And you're right. They keep pushing the bit. You keep connecting the dots. You realize that the elevator operator girl that Baxter has a crush on is fucking, what's his name? Sheldrake. Mr. Sheldrake's mistress. You know, and he's like,
Miss Kubelik.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, and he's like, oh, and you're like, this is kind of funny though. This is a good conflict, and then shit gets kind of dark, really dark.
That's what I love about this movie. I just spit. If you could see that, cut it out.
No,
let's restart the episode.
Yeah.
That's what I love about this movie is tonally. There's like a shift. It's like the first hour. It's
fast.
Like fun. And a little bit lighter. This movie isn't as light as I remember, though.
It's
dark
half is half the movie. Like,
yeah,
once
it's like literally
a shift, it shifts
throughout the movie. Miss Kubelik is getting just hearing things about Mr. Sheldrake, about like his other mistresses, and how like she's just sort of the next one in line, and eventually she'll be phased out for a new one. Mr. Sheldrake always keeps promising Miss Kubelik that he's going to leave his wife, and he never actually does.
He's not gonna.
So yeah, they meet. They're at Baxter's apartment on Christmas Eve. They're having a fight. He's like, we've wasted all our time. I have to go home because it's Christmas Eve. I have to go home to my family in White
Plains.
Here's
$100.
Yeah, here's $100. I didn't know what to buy you. I'm not good at that sort of thing. Here's $100. And
he was like, I couldn't give you a gift because my wife would suspect something, which I guess makes sense. But like,
oh right,
it emphasizes that this is just not a good situation to be in as a relationship.
Yeah, and
so
then
here's $100, which I guess is like $100,000 in today's money. I'm not sure.
You obviously don't know how inflation works. It's probably like I don't know. I'm not gonna begin to understand that. I know what I'm talking about.
It's a nice sum.
I mean, Miss Kubelik even has like when she gives him the $100, she starts to like kind of like take off her clothes, and he's like, "What are you doing?" or something like that. And she's like,
"Am I a prostitute to you?"
Yeah,
or
basically
something.
like, yeah.
She really sticks it to him. Like, I like how much emphasis is placed on her character. You really see her perspective. You see the imbalance in her relationship with Sheldrake. How he's like, "Oh, I love you so much," and like you can just so see that he's this toxic person. And she's just kind of hopelessly in love with him and keeps falling for his promises and stuff. But like, it's not her fault, obviously. She's just, I like the emphasis that they placed on her character.
Yeah,
because we follow her for a while. Like, there's a large portion of the movie where CC Baxter, who's like supposed to be the main character, he kind of is put on the shelf for a little bit. And they're like, let's focus on Fran Kubelik for a little bit.
Yeah, after Baxter finds out that Miss Kubelik is Sheldrake's mistress, he sort of like is like miserable. That's when he goes out to the bar on Christmas Eve and gets drunk. And then meanwhile, Miss Kubelik is like, having it out with Sheldrake, and then like
before
we get to it, I feel like you want to say something.
Well, CC Baxter is like, he's depressed because he finds out that the girl he has a crush on is the mistress of his boss, which, yeah, I get that. That sucks. That sucks to hear, honestly. So he goes out to the bar and he just starts like hitting, kind of like he gets pissed drunk and starts like hitting it off with this other random girl who's also married to a jockey. Her story is so bizarre.
She's married to a man who is in a prison in Havana, Cuba.
Yeah.
Because he was like a jockey and was dosing the horses with drugs and was put in jail.
Right.
And she said she wrote a letter to Castro asking for his release, and Castro never responded, and he's sort of he's sort of a fink for that, is what she calls. Let me look up, make sure fink isn't some like horrific word.
My beau is kind of in a Cuban prison for being a horse doper. So will you be with me tonight?
Yeah.
I like her. I like her whole character and attitude. I like her approach. I like her way of flirting with CC Baxter. She just like kind of takes a straw and just like is blowing the wrapper at him.
It's so good.
Better than any pickup line you could ever muster, or at least maybe that I could ever muster. I think I kind of want to try that.
This movie is so charming, and like it really this movie's 2 hours, and I feel like for sort of a kind of rom dramedy is maybe a little bit long, but I do think that length is necessary for moments like that, to just sort of like just to be in those moments. Because like the straw blowing thing that goes on for like 40 seconds. Like it's not like
but it's
she doesn't
so
just do
funny.
it once. Yeah.
I'm just like, what is she doing?
It's really good. And then even later on, like we periodically cut back to them from Sheldrake and Miss Kubelik. We cut back to Baxter and this woman just dancing in this bar, and like their faces are pressed together and they're just sort of like pushing up against each other. And it's really funny.
God, yeah, I love that. So like the contrast is really funny because Fran and Mr. Sheldrake they're having like an intense conversation, and then it cuts back to fucking Cece, and he's just pressed cheek to cheek with this random stranger that he just met at the bar, and he's trying to take her back to his place, and inevitably he finds Fran. Fran, unfortunately, is so distraught by her woe-begotten romance with Mr. Sheldrake that she attempts suicide.
Yeah.
And then the movie gets very dark.
Yeah.
But like it feels very, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but it feels very forward thinking almost. Like it's like it's so rare to see in a 1960s era movie comedy and suicide so intertwined. Like I can't think of another example of a dark comedy from this era. Like that feels very our times.
Right.
Where it's like something so bleak that we're actually going to poke fun at it a little bit, which is pretty risque, but I think it pays off.
The movie isn't like realistic, but it feels realistic in the way that like people are allowed to contain multitudes, the way they're allowed to like just sort of, they can be sad, they can be kind of quirky and funny. It's like
the way that it can jump from comedy to tragedy in just the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and
it felt very real.
And the transition is so smooth. It doesn't feel like forced or anything.
No, it doesn't feel stupid or sudden. It did feel real.
Yeah,
because that stretch is dramatic, where he finds Fran Kubelik in his apartment, and he's like, I gotta take care of this woman. I gotta talk to the doctor. But even still, like he's defending his boss. And he's refusing to like call him out on his absolute bullshit. He's like, "Oh, I can't talk to her. I'm with my family right now," and all this stupid shit. Sheldrake sucks. He's a terrible human being.
He does suck. That rewatching. I've only seen this movie once before. Like probably when I probably saw it when I was like 15 or 16. I haven't seen it in a long time. And watching it again, I was like, it's so interesting, just like the way Baxter defends Sheldrake. It's like he knows he's wrong, but what I like about this movie, I like it when I like about Baxter's arc is I like that when he gets with the higher ups, he becomes a worse guy the way they are.
Yeah, and I think the movie is very clear about showing that he is a worse guy.
Yeah,
like he's not heralded as this hero. He's kind of put on this almost anti-pedestal of he's become exactly what he's not what he sought to destroy. He wants to be an executive, but now he's become one of these kind of scumbag type guys, you know, and it's like we as the audience want better for him. But you know, he's not shown to be this hero. He's shown to be like a flawed individual, which I like. I think that helps his character, actually. Makes him more interesting.
Yeah.
Like his major flaw, actually both his and Fran's major flaw is that they're so invested in Mr. Sheldrake, who has kind of this power over both of their lives. And the minute that Cece is able to break his hold, it inspires Fran to break off with Mr. Sheldrake.
Totally. That's a really good observation.
And that part's cool.
I love. We've talked about Dr. Dreyfus, who played by Jack Crucian. God,
He's the man.
This guy has such a face.
He's so awesome in this.
When he comes in and is like, you know, he's like pumping Fran's stomach. He's like
She
like
swallowed a bunch
slapping her.
of sleeping pills.
Yes. Fran swallowed a bunch of sleeping pills, so he's
He's
Baxter's
slapping
gonna call
the shit out of her. He's like,
he does slap the shit out of her, but it's also like it feels like it feels like
urgent.
real. It's like,
Yeah.
he's like I don't know. It's like shocking how like he's slapping her around, but he's also like trying to like he's like he's like wake up.
Yeah, he's like, do not go to sleep right. No, it does feel very real. It feels like very much like he's trying to do his duty as a doctor and a neighbor.
Yeah.
And he's just an all around good guy.
Dreyfus is like, you have to like she has to stay with you for the next like 48 hours at least because she needs to like recuperate.
Yeah.
Which allows like it's just like a bottle, a little like sealed ship in a bottle for these two characters to finally interact longer than 5 seconds on the elevator.
Yes, which is so necessary. And I feel like so many of these rom-coms overlook. They're just like, oh, these characters love each other and just don't ask why. It's like, I need to see it. You know what I mean? Like, I believe their relationship, barring the fucking weird. Baxter is like, oh, I looked up your whole case file. I know where you live. I know your mother's maiden name. I know your social security number. Isn't that I'm a quirky guy, aren't I? That's a fucking 8 red flags. Other than that, it's a believable relationship.
I wrote down, Jack Lemmon is the only man who can get away with looking up your insurance information so he can know about your life.
Yeah, that part I was like, oh no.
See, but even that scene, he pulls it like, I'm like, okay, that's a little bit intense, but like I still like him. I'm like, you kind of pull it off because she's into it. She's like, oh, this guy's kind of like, this guy cares way more
She's like,
than any other guy has ever cared about me. Which could be dangerous. I mean, luckily Baxter's not a fucking serial killer, but
yeah, but he's still, I don't know. It's such a weird power dynamic because like he knows all that information. It's just, that's bad. But like you just forget about that after a little bit, I guess.
What I like about that too,
redemption. His redemption is he denounces his whole job and Mr. Sheldrake and all that stuff.
Right. What I like about the looking up the information thing, though, is you don't really, at least for me, I didn't realize how much Baxter liked Fran until he said that to her. Like, you get the impression, like, yeah, he thinks she's like pretty, he'd like to go out with her, but like, and then he's like, you're like, oh, he's actually obsessed with her.
Yeah, you're right, but I also don't want him to be so obsessed with her because it's a little much. Like, let's dial it back, dude. Let's find a medium. You know what I mean?
I want to talk about
all the references to fucking his other shit. This director to Billy Wilder's other movies. Grand Hotel is not one of Billy Wilder's movies.
Oh
right?
My god, I forgot about that. I meant to write that down. Or I did write it down.
He watches it on TV. Fucking.
I thought it was so fun. I was like, Andrew's gonna hate this.
I hated it. I was like. Well, I thought it was funny because he's like...
He's excited. He's
excited, then he gets pissed. He's like, nah, I'm done with this shit because there's too many ads.
See, I wrote like I thought it was funny. That bit is funny because it probably killed in 1960.
Yeah, it
Because it's
probably
like, oh,
did.
TVs are like relatively new and like, wow, somebody's actually saying for the first time that advertising is annoying on TV. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
wow, that's
guess
probably like the
so.
first time anyone's ever made that joke.
Yeah.
And it was
And then
probably like people are probably like hooting and hollering.
standing ovation. I was like,
It
don't
is
watch
funny though,
Grand
but it's
Hotel. I was like, you don't want to watch it, brother. Trust me, brother. And then
just
some
eat your
fucking
TV dinner and stare into the void.
yeah, make your fucking tennis racket spaghetti and just.
That's so good.
And then there's that fucking executive who's like, sounds like a lost weekend, am I right? And I'm like,
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I'm like, fucking kill me, dude. That
Would you have ever guessed that the man who directed Lost Weekend would direct a movie as good as The Apartment?
thinking about Lost Weekend almost hates The Apartment for me.
Wow.
Because all the shit that I think is good in The Apartment, I'm like, is it actually bad? And he doesn't really mean it in that way. Because The Lost Weekend feels kind of misplaced and too PSA-ish. Like,
Mhm.
it does kind of boggle my mind because I'm like, they're two very different movies, but I don't know. People make different movies. It's fine.
I think Lost Weekend isn't it like I think it's like 13 years before this movie,
Oh,
right?
really?
I think so. Because it's like 15 years between that and Apartment. Obviously, Billy Wilder went through some growth as a filmmaker because Lost
I don't-
Weekend's a sack of potatoes and The Apartment is one of the great films.
But I don't know. Like, the fact that it's the same guy kind of gives me pause because I'm thinking, is it really just two sides of the same coin and something in it makes me like it more? But I do think The Apartment is a far better movie.
Here's the thing, since you've only seen two, like Billy Wilder, he made Sunset Boulevard, he made fucking Some Like It Hot with Jack Lemmon again. He made fucking Ace in the
Okay.
Hole with Kirk Douglas. He's made a lot of good movies that
Okay.
people that are like classics. It's just the one the Academy gave him the award for at least once is like a nothing
Kind of a dud.
2 out of 5 fucking piece of Wonder Bread.
It was fine. I'm not here. Look, I'm not here to review Lost Weekend. We did that already. That's done.
No,
That's in our
need
past
to
now.
relitigate it
Go check out that episode.
or don't.
Or don't. Whatever. It's your life, man.
Earlier, you were talking about Miss Kubelik,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think Shirley MacLaine. We talked about her on Terms of Endearment.
Yeah. She's
She
fucking awesome. Sorry to cut you off, but she's good. She's really good as
she's
an actress.
so good,
Yeah.
and Ms. Kubelik. Listen,
Mm-hmm. Unless
does Miss Kubelik have?
Moxie?
Does Miss Kubelik really have a character outside of her relationship to Mr. Sheldrake? Like all of her turmoil kind of comes from that place.
Yes.
Is
but
there more to her? Like textually, not necessarily, but I do think Shirley MacLaine's performance is so good that she actually imbues Miss Kubelik with a lot of like kind of like unspoken backstory. Like she feels like such a full and alive person.
I don't think it's just her performance, though. I think she's also a well-written character. So I gotta
She's a well-written character.
I gotta give Billy his props here because I don't know if did he write this?
Yeah, him and Billy and IAL Diamond. I think
I don't know what the fuck you just said, but both of those people, sure, you gotta give them their prop because I do think she's a well-written character. You're right. She like doesn't have much within this movie beyond her tumultuous relationships.
Right.
But I feel like movies of this era and earlier, it's so rare that we get to see true hardship in these relationships, and like so much emphasis is placed on her and her feelings and her emotions.
Yes.
And I think it's probably pretty forward thinking for the time, I would imagine, right?
She is well written. I agree with you. I just think like, yeah, there's they don't delve as deeply into like what else does she want? But it's like,
It's a romance. I
it's a
don't
movie
know.
of its time, but also even for the time, even for today, the movie feels like this movie even today by today's standards feels more generous to Miss Kubelik than I don't know, even a lot of movies that are made now, like rom-coms and stuff, like
Yeah.
are to their main female lead. Call me crazy.
Okay, crazy.
I want to talk about the ending a little bit.
Oh, the movie does end. That is right. Yeah.
Sheldrake's secretary, who once was also his mistress,
Yeah.
he fires her because
Bye-bye.
of what she told Ms. Kubelik. I keep saying Mrs. Ms. Kubelik, that made her take sleeping pills and,
Which was the truth. She was like,
yeah, she was trying to help her
he
out.
does this a lot with
Yeah.
a lot of other women.
Yeah, and
she did it in a pretty condescending way. She was
that's
like,
true.
"Oh,
She
you
wasn't
think
helping
you're
her out.
special, honey?"
As soon as that came out of my mouth, I was like, that's not true. That's not what she was doing.
Yeah.
So Mr. Sheldrake fires her, and then she goes and tells Mr. Sheldrake's wife, Mrs. Sheldrake,
Yeah.
that
About all this shit.
what Sheldrake's doing, and they fucking divorce.
And then he's like, I love Fran now.
I love Fran. My wife's leaving me. Not by really my choice, sort of by events out of my control, things that have transpired. I
Yeah,
didn't
he
really
tries
make
to
happen.
spin it like, oh, you know how I've always been promising I'll get a divorce because I don't love my wife, I love you. I finally did it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you didn't. You were forced to because your wife hates you now and knows the truth.
Yeah.
But she still ends up with him, like,
Yeah. So
until the very, very end.
yeah. So Baxter hears about all this, kind of, right? Doesn't he? He hears about it because
from his boss, from Mr. Sheldrake.
Because Sheldrake's like, "Hey, can I get that key back?" And he's like, "What?" And he's like,
"Yeah, I'm with CC." He prepares this whole speech he's gonna give to his boss, where he's like, "I really love Fran," and blah 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 blah. This is me taking my stand, and Mr. Sheldrake gives him the same exact speech he was gonna give to him, which is I thought pretty clever. And he's like, "I'm gonna need that key to your apartment because." Actually, because why? Why the fuck does he need that now? He's divorced. Does he just not have a house?
He does mention it, like, in passing. He says something about, like, how he's staying in a hotel or something, and it's, like, not a nice place. And so, like...
Oh, fuck off. Don't take the key to my apartment. Have sex in your shitty hotel. I don't give a rat's ass.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what CC says to him. He sticks up for himself finally. He gets offered, a big time, an even bigger time position.
He's like Sheldrake's assistant.
Yeah, like his executive assistant or something. He's like, kindly go fuck yourself, actually. I'm sick of this.
Yeah.
Fran hears about this from Mr. Sheldrake, and she's inspired to dump his ass.
What I love about that ending, that scene where Fran realizes, is like, you almost see it on her face, her realizing in real time, oh, this guy is kind of boring and lame, and I don't actually like him that much. Like, Baxter is like it's almost like you see on her face the 2 days they spent together where he's like fucking straining pasta on a tennis racket like a cute little maniac.
He is a cute little maniac. Like, you can tell he genuinely cares about her.
Yeah, and he's doing funny little bits.
He's got bits.
Like, he's taking care of her pretty well.
And then she gets to his apartment. She like rushes to his place, and you hear a fucking gunshot, and you're like, "Oh no!" Like, I thought it was gonna go sour, like real bad. And then like, "Oh no, it's probably champagne." And then sure enough, she opens the door in a panic, and he's just like, "Oh, it's New Year's Eve. I was just like popping some champagne."
Well, what also connects Kubelik and Baxter is like, in those 2 days they spent together, Baxter's like, "Yeah, I once thought about killing myself when like a woman, my friend's wife, who I was in love with, didn't love me back. Or told me that we couldn't be together, whatever it was. And like he shoots himself in the leg.
I think that part, more than any part in the movie, is like it feels very current. You know what I mean? Like trying to make sense of depression and hopeless romance. And you could definitely argue that maybe it's in poor taste. But I thought it was charming. Like it was dark. But like he's kind of just like trying anything to make her feel better. And I admire that. Like I do. Like his story is bleak. Like he tried to commit suicide and just failed. It's not a happy story, but like it's told in an endearing way. Yeah. It's kind of weird. It makes you feel this certain way that like not a lot of movies do. I think there's something to be said about that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, total. That's really well put. And he even has that like after that story, he's like, I forget what he says exactly. He says something, I think he's like, you know, it took like 3 months for the wound to heal, but I got over the girl in 3 weeks. And it's like, that's this
like I laughed at that.
Yeah,
like,
it's such a good line
story,
and
but
it's such a good
funny.
release of tension too, because like it is like, God, this movie is something else. But
it's good.
Should we talk about the other nominees?
There were others.
Do you have any final thoughts on The Apartment?
Nah.
All right. Fucking rules. Everyone should. It's free on Tubi. That's how I watched it.
Is that really how you watched it? Oh, if I had only known. I paid $3.99. I paid $3.99 for this swill.
Oh, calm down.
Sorry.
You're screaming.
Sorry, I got hot for a sec.
1961 Oscars. Did Billy Wilder win Best Director? I believe he did.
This is his second win for him?
He did.
Did he win for Lost Weekend?
Now you're really testing me.
Sorry.
Sorry. You're really testing me.
I didn't mean to throw a curveball.
Gonna pull up another tab.
Sorry.
Just vamp first. I don't know, talk about like what you ate for breakfast or something.
I had a smoothie, I guess. I don't really know.
That's kind of good, actually.
It was pretty good. It was like a chocolate peanut butter
Oh,
affair. Yeah.
Did you make it yourself, or you bought it from someplace?
No, I made it.
That's even fucking better. Frozen bananas, obviously.
No, but I had like a bunch of ice cubes in it. A regular banana, organic peanut butter, and like this like cocoa powder, like protein cocoa.
Holy shit! Did you shit? Have you shit today?
I shat 8 times, dude. It was insane.
That's not good.
It looked exactly the same going in as it did going out.
All right. Billy Wilder did win Best Director.
Good.
For Lost Weekend. So he's won twice now. All right. So other nominees that year. Obviously, fucking The Apartment wins Best Motion Picture. Other
nice
films include. Hold on a sec.
Who could it be now?
One of John Wayne's 3 directed by films. The Alamo. Directed by and starring John Wayne, Pilgrim. The legendary true story of a small band of soldiers who sacrificed their lives in hopeless combat against a massive army in order to prevent a tyrant from smashing the new Republic of Texas.
What?
Ever heard of it?
Documentary?
Yeah.
Pass.
Honestly, it sounds fine. I don't know.
It sounds fine. Yeah.
Next up, we have Elmer Gantry.
That's a film?
It's a guy. When Hedonistic, directed by Richard Brooks, starring Burt Lancaster as the titular Elmer. When hedonistic but charming conman Elmer Gantry meets the beautiful Sister Sharon Falconer, a roadside revivalist, he feigns piousness to join her act as a passionate preacher. The two make a successful onstage pair, and their chemistry extends to romance. Both the show and their relationship are threatened, however, when one of Gantry's ex-lovers decides that she has a score to settle with the charismatic performer. Sounds bad.
Really? I was gonna say it sounds fine.
Next up, we have Sons and Lovers.
Ew.
Directed by Jack Cardiff, starring Trevor Howard, Dean Stockwell. Dean from
Dean.
fucking Gentleman's Agreement.
Little Dean Stockwell.
The son of a working class British mining family has dreams of pursuing an art career. Sounds like fucking Billy Elliot. But when he strikes up an affair with an older married woman, doesn't sound like Billy Elliot, from the town, it enrages his kind but possessive mother. That actually sounds pretty good.
Okay.
I wonder
I'll
how
entertain
Dean fares in it.
You know Dean's a legend in this.
Last up, final nominee, we have The Sundowners.
Okay.
Directed by Fred Zinnemann. Fred Cinnamon? Why do I know
Fred
this guy? Oh, he directed
Cinnamon.
High Noon. He directed From Here to Eternity. He directed a movie we'll cover at some point called A Man for All Seasons. Boring ass shit. He directs the most boring movies. Well, High Noon's pretty good. In the Australian outback, already off to a boring start. Sorry, just kidding. The Carmody family. Patty, Ida, and their teenage son, Sean, are sheep drovers, always on the move. Ida and Sean want to settle down and buy a farm. Patty wants to keep moving. A sheep shearing contest, the birth of a child, drinking, gambling, and a racehorse will all have a part in the final decision.
Oh, how?
You got to watch to find out.
All right. I think out of all the other ones, that's probably piqued my interest the most, I'll be honest.
I would watch The Alamo because I'm curious about John Wayne as a director. And I would watch Sons and Lovers. I'd put on Sundowners for 20 minutes and see how it does. And if not, I'd turn it off.
I guarantee you they don't have Australian accents, which would probably be off-putting.
It's probably like British accents.
Yeah.
Somehow that's supposed to pass.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, so those are the nominees. Do you think The Apartment is Best Picture worthy?
Yeah, why not? I think rom-coms are so interesting because I think they're so small scale, and I think the stakes are so small. But I don't know. I think this was a really nice take on an inward story, and I thought it was good. Give it the Oscar.
Give it the Oscar, he says.
Yeah. What do you think? Yes? No?
Yeah, 100%. This is one of my favorite movies we've covered so far.
Oh, cool.
So I think it's exactly my kind of shit.
Well, do you want to hear the truth?
Yeah, tell me.
Truth about this movie?
Yeah, we got 3 minutes, by the way.
Well, you know what? That's more than enough time because I got all the answers. I found some reviews on the internet that shed some light on the subject.
Go for it.
We want to hear what the people have to say.
Oh, yeah.
Give me the name of somebody who's just, no matter what, at all costs, he's saying it.
12C.
12C says 1 star.
Damn.
Look up the definition of the word abominable, like I just did. And you'll find... Don't cut me off, fucker. And you'll find an accurate description of The Apartment. Everything is good about this movie. Except the fact that it's morally sickening.
Oh.
Maybe that's a good thing, that it's so obviously wrong to the point of making people sick. I'm only worried that some people might not feel sick after watching this. Parentheses, watched on a plane.
Bad way to watch this movie, I feel like. Like, if you haven't seen it before. If it's your first time watching The Apartment, don't watch it on JetBlue.
Give me the name of somebody who's feeling a little rambunctious this evening.
6F.
6F says 2 stars. Double the score. Weirdest idea to have your main characters a beta male cuck and a whore. Nice music, though.
God, I hate the way we have decided to watch films as a culture.
Yeah, I don't know. I tried to find some balance. I tried to get some balance, so this one's a positive review. Give me somebody who's just like super positive.
13D.
13D says 5 stars. This movie bangs. No nonsense. Just MFers acting their faces off in black and white. The characters are great. Baxter, Fran, and Dr. Dreyfuss were great. I'm glad Buddy Boy found his mensch. Never thought I'd be watching a 63-year-old movie, so shout out to PBS for airing this. Truly a classic.
That's such a cute review. It's so earnest.
1.5 stars. A couple nice moments, but anyone giving this 5 stars needs to be put on a fucking watch list.
Jesus Christ.
So, give me the name of somebody who's feeling themselves.
Fucking 1A.
1A says 5 stars. Pretty sure I watched a Young Sheldon YouTube Shorts clip about this. Based.
What are we talking about anymore?
What does that mean? Dear God. That's it.
All right. Next week we're covering Unforgiven, fucking by Clint Eastwood. All right, everyone, have a good week. Yeah, butter your fucking ass and mustard, eat relish, and drink ketchup out of your ass. Wieners. Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4. These boys only want the best stuff. They want the cream of the crop. They don't want none of that Michael Bay shit. They want the shit that bops. Oscar bait, black and white, maybe something French. If it's got more than one explosion, honey, put that shit on the bench. Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners. These boys are the Oscar Wieners. Oscar Wieners.
Unforgiven fucking rips.
It does it?
Yeah, it's might be my favorite movie we cover on this show.